Well, hello everyone, this is Al-Fadi and I want to welcome you back to a continuation of this new series that we have entitled MBS, the Great Reformer of Islam. Of course, we're talking about the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, where I come from, and quite frankly, I am so impressed by the big vision that he has for my country, and that's known also as Vision 2030. And last time, myself and Dr. J here in studio, we unpacked the portions of his amazing interview that took place on April 27th of 21. And this interview have gone viral because of some of the content that were discussed in it. With that in mind, let's turn our attention now to Dr. J. Dr. J, we talked about the big vision, but there is also a big elephant in the room that comes with that big vision as well, or at least will be counter to that vision.
Yeah, so here's the big vision. These are all the promises that he has given and that he's actually fulfilling. He's talking about Neom. We're talking about these enormous structures, these buildings that are multi-story, these skyscrapers in Riyadh and in Jeddah, and they're up in the Gulf of Aqaba. But Mudaifa, the man who's having this show, he after an hour of unpacking everything that MBS, Mohammed bin Salman, has done and will continue to do for the next 9 years. This is what he did for the first 6. Yeah. Now this is what he's going to do for the next 9. Yeah. He then turned to him the last half hour.
That's Abdullah Mudaifer, the host.
The host.
Yeah, turned to MBS and asked a question.
He asked the $1 million question, the elephant that was sitting in the room, the question that I was asking, and that is, well, hold on a minute, this all is very well and good, but remember, Saudi Arabia is where the two holy places are.
That's correct.
This is where Mecca and Medina is. This is the Hijaz. This is where all the millions of pilgrims come to for the Hajj. This is the bastion of Islam. This is where Muhammad lived. This is where all the traditions are created. This is everything that Islam is dependent on, is this country, and this is where all the radical Muslims and the extremists, this is what they look to as really the source for everything they do. And so Mudaifa said, what about the extremists?
Which is really a fair question to ask, obviously.
We were all asking it. I was asking it. I was wondering what's going to happen to him. I was thinking, hold on a minute. This guy, what's going to happen to him? Is he going to be dethroned? Is he going to be thrown out? Is his father going to shut him down? And yet, this has been a number of months now, the interview's out, and there's been no repercussions.
Well, actually, I think he is headed in the right direction, and he has a lot of support. You know what's going to his advantage? The majority of the population is young, and they are open-minded, and they're excited about these kind of changes.
Okay, we're going to get to that. In fact, I'm going to talk about that because that's something that's fascinating, what you're bringing up. But nonetheless, you still got to talk about the extremists. You still got to talk about the Salafis. You still got to talk about the Wahhabis. Now, explain who the Wahhabis are.
Well, the Wahhabis, we call them Wahhabis. They're the Salafi. Why do we call them Salafi? Anywhere you hear about the Salafi movement is a movement. It's a Reformation movement, if you wish, taking you back to the 7th century Islam. That's called the Salaf, meaning the early Muslims. Let's call it like the church fathers, That's the Muhammad's basically time, his companions, and their followers. And this is kind of like, you can call it the golden age. If you want to know Islam and if you want to follow it perfectly, that's the model to follow. That's why it's called the Salaf, going back to that model. Now, Wahhabi is named after a reformer. His name is Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab. As a matter of fact, he's the one who had a pact, a covenant, if you wish, with the founder of the Saudi family, the First Kingdom, where the country is named after him, Muhammad bin Saud. Imam Muhammad bin Saud and Imam Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab had a pact, a handshake. Abdul Wahhab says, let me handle the religious affairs. Muhammad bin Saud says, okay, we'll handle the political affairs, and it's been like this ever since. Now,
ever since, we're talking about 1700.
That's
so
right.
This is 400 years. This is not just recently. This is not just in our lifetime. We're talking about 400 years ago this pact was created, and this is a pact of bringing the mosque and state together, is it not?
That's right, exactly. So the family of Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab, known as al-Sheikh, the family of al-Sheikh, meaning the clerk, are the ones, till this day, who head the religious police. And Al Saud, or the House of Saud, is the one that handles the political affairs. Now, Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab was disturbed by what was going on in Saudi because, like you said, it's the holy, the host of the holy lands, the holy mosques, and therefore he felt like there are some innovations, if you wish, and he went on to do reformation and change things and even persecute those who devised new ways of worship against the Salaf. So the movement is known as the Wahhabi movement, and that's why some of the Salafis in Saudi are labeled as Wahhabis.
Okay, so you have this, and this is what I wanted to bring this question up. I wanted to bring him up, and I sat there and said, I couldn't believe it. He's asking this question on national television. This is going to go all over the Islamic world, and certainly, though it was in Arabic, it was in English subtitles. Everything he said was in English subtitles. And when he asked the question, this is fascinating because just look at nonverbals. The first hour, every once in a while he'd do this. He'd pull up his chin, to.
Well, it's going to get tight after a while, to be honest with you. Yeah.
And he would do that. Yeah. Once he asked this question, he almost like doing it every second. You could see that he was nervous, and this is what I guess is what his way of question. You could see he was pausing. He was thinking through exactly how he's going to answer this. You can see, and when we pause, we say or or yeah. We have these kind of intermediate words that we put in there to hold on, so we can think about how we're going to answer it. His way of doing it was to pull up his chin, and he kept on doing this, and you can see he was being very careful how he's going to answer this. And the question was, what about the Wahhabis? What about the extremists? Aren't they going to react? Aren't they going to confront you because you're going against everything that they believe, everything that they stand for? And so this is what he said. We have a constitution, and that constitution is the Qur'an.
Right.
The Qur'an is our constitution. Everything we do must be dictated by the Qur'an, he said. Then he thought a little bit more. And as for the traditions, because Budaifa then came back on him that time. Okay, what about the Hadith? What about the Sirah? What about the Tafsir? What about the Tahqiq? These four genres of what we know as the Islamic traditions. What are you going to do about that material? Because that material is basically it's how all Muslims are to walk, talk, drink, eat, sleep. Everything they do 24/7 is dictated by the practice, the example of the Prophet himself. And the example of the Prophet comes from the Sirah, which is biography, and most of it comes from the Hadith, because that is the enormous amount of Al-Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, Ibn Dawud, Tirmidhi, all these enormous amount of material that is on every aspect of life. That's how you live. That's how you work. This is what they have to go to know how they're to treat their children, how they're to treat their wife, how they're to treat their opponents. Everything that is dictated by life is in the traditions. That's what the Salafis use. That's what the Wahhabi dictate. And they've been dictating this for 400 years. What are you going to do about those traditions? So he stopped and thought, and he did a bit of this with his neck, and then he said, there are 3 levels of tradition. We have Sahih, like Sahih Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, the 6 major compilations of the Hadith, that's Sahih, which are unquestioned. You don't question them because they are perfect. Underneath that is Hassan. You can question that a bit. And then below that is Da'if. That you can question all because it's very weak. 3 different levels of Hadith. You know this. Everybody who has studied Islam knows these 3 different levels. And as far as for the bottom 2, he pretty much was willing to throw them out, because they're nothing more than man-made. That's why they are middle and weak. But the top one, the Sahih, what are you going to do with that? Because that should be unquestioned. But he says, we're going to dictate and we're going to relegate anything that is Sahih. We're going to use the Quran as our litmus. We're going to use the Quran to be able to go to use as the standard by which all the Sahih will be tested. So anything that agrees with the Quran, we'll keep. Anything that doesn't agree with the Quran, we'll throw out, is what he was saying.
The Quran will become the sieve that you're going to filter the remaining, basically, portion of Hadith, which is Sahih in this case. And even out of that, you'll be left with few.
Okay, and that's what's happened. Now, since April 27th, I've been looking at different articles that have been coming up. I've been looking at people who are reacting to it, and I've been looking at what scholars are saying. What scholars are saying this: if he is now dictating that only those Hadith will be followed that are supported by the Quran. He's become a Quran only, Quranist. Quranist is the name that is given to that. It's been around since the 1800s. It's well known. We know some famous Quranists. Shabir Ali, Dr. Shabir Ali would be a Quranist. He is the one that's very clear. He's very clear that he doesn't go back to the Hadith anymore. He only goes to the Quran. So you might say that MBS has become a Quranist, is what he was saying in this interview.
And it's really a brilliant answer, because instead of saying anything that could be perceived negative against the Prophet, all you're saying is, we do understand that there might be some questionable hadith in there, and we have to use the Quran now as that go back to standard.
So, off the top of your head, if you're only going to use those hadith that are sahih, and only those sahih that are correspond with the Quran, how many hadith are we talking about? What percentage would you guess, just off the top of your head?
You know, it's going to be a very small percentage for sure.
Okay, a very small percentage. You know what the scholars
10,
are saying?
20, 30%, maybe something like that.
You know what the scholars are saying? If you go up and see what all the scholars are saying, they're saying this would relegate only 10% of the hadith, therefore, are authoritative.
Yeah.
10%.
But you know, here's the beauty, about this, Jay. I mean, I'm trying to think realistically here. Isn't this what everybody's been hoping
Hold on, well, you're jumping ahead. I don't want to talk
but
about
I'm
this
saying,
yet.
I mean, isn't this what everybody's been hoping for?
I do, but I don't want to talk about that yet.
Is definitely headed in that direction.
I don't want to talk about that yet.
Yeah.
You're coming, in some way you want to get to the next episode. I want to save that, because what you're bringing up is where we all want to go, and I can see why you're excited by it, but I still want to talk about that 10%. Only 10% of the traditions you're holding on to. The other 90% you're already throwing out. And we're talking about the Sahih. You've already thrown out the Hassan and Da'if. You're only talking about 10% of that which is left behind. That 10% is relegated to what the Quran says. You become a Quranist right there and then. Here's the next question, and this is what Mudaifa said, okay? So who's going to dictate what that 10% is? He didn't say 10%. He didn't know that. I don't even think he knows that. But who's going to dictate what we keep and what we throw away? The Wahhabis? Is it the Wahhabis that are going to have that jurisdiction? And I loved looking at MBS, because then he really got nervous. And this is what he said. Why is it that we have relegated one group, one man, as the arbiter between man and God?
It's amazing. This answer.
What an
really is
answer!
Amazing, absolutely. I mean, it's fascinating to me, and I pray for his protection, because he's definitely standing against the mainstream for sure. Because you have not only now the radical Wahhabis who are upset, obviously. You have the Muslim Brotherhoods who want to take advantage of that and say, you see, we are now the whole beholders of Islam. You have the Shia, represented by Iran, who probably want to present themselves as the genuine form of Islam. So you have a lot of waves that probably will try one way or another to antagonize this movement.
But he went one step further. Yeah. He didn't just stop there.
Yeah.
He said Wahhab himself,
Abdul Wahhab, yeah.
He would have been enormously upset by what we're doing. Yeah. He would be, he didn't say rolling in his grave, I'm saying that. He would be rolling in his grave if he knew what we were doing with his name. No man should be an arbiter between man and God. And that's the very thing he was against. He was against anybody as an intermediary. It should be the Quran and only the Quran. Therefore, who's going to interpret the Quran? Not Wahhab from 400 years ago. What he said next was, we should be able to interpret it for every age and every day. Ijtihad should not be closed. Ijtihad should be open. Help people understand, what is ijtihad?
Yeah, ijtihad is basically one of the school of thought in Sharia. So if you find something that is available, like a ruling in the Quran, you go by that. If you find a ruling in the Quran and the Hadith, now it strengthens your case. But let's say you do not find a specific ruling for a specific action. That's where the role of ijtihad can, become handy. Meaning, you as an individual, or maybe it's a school, you can say, well, okay, so we want to come up with a ruling in accordance to these, other rulings. This resembles this action, or this may appear to be like that action. Example, drug dealing. Well, there isn't a specific ruling for drug dealing, But some will take it as extreme as, well, it's almost like highway robbery. It destroys peace in the community, and therefore, what's the punishment for highway robbery? Beheading, or banishment from the land? You do the same thing. So that's kind of a form of ijtihad. You kind of like come up with your own ruling, or maybe a group of clerks will decide this is the best way to handle this particular one. But it will vary from age to age, no doubt about that.
So this is called interpretation of Scripture.
Exactly.
Basically, we're going to take the ruling, we're going to look at Scripture, we're going to look at the Quran, and we're going to look at the Sahih that correspond with it, and then we're going to decide how you interpret that. Exegesis is what we use.
Yeah, doing your best, basically. Ijtihad is kind of like doing your best judgment to how to handle this.
But it's not going to be an ijtihad from 1700 AD. It's going to be an ijtihad that is for today, for this time, and for this place, and for these people.
See, now that's taking it even a step further, because it's
Bingo.
not like you're going back to, okay, so what did Ibn Taymiyyah say about this? No. What do we say today?
No, Ibn
about it?
Taymiyyah from 1300, Wahhab from 1700, we're now in the 21st century, and look who's saying it. This is not a Wahhabi saying it. This is not a scholar, a religious scholar. This is MBS saying that. So MBS is saying we. Now, who is he we? Well, he's talking about himself. We're going to interpret for today. Woo! I mean, talk about chewing, taking more than you can chew. This guy is really putting his foot forward. And of course, hearing that, if I was a Wahhabi, or if I was a Salafist, or if I was any radical or extremist listening to what he's saying, I would be angry. And interestingly, almost all of the comments after the end of I put it up now in 3 different sessions, 3 different times I've unpacked it. I love to look at the comments. In fact, those of you who are watching, go and comment on this. I want to see what your comments are. I want to see what you say. If you're a Muslim, comment. You've got the comments down there. Yeah, I want to hear how you would react to this. But don't just react to this with a knee-jerk reaction. I want you to think through what we're going to say, because now we're going to unpack it, because I want us to react to this. Yeah. Now, on face value, I would react like 90% or almost 98% to 99% of those who comments are made. And what they're saying is, this guy cannot succeed. There's no way in the world that he can succeed. There's nothing that he can do. That they're all saying that, and that's the knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah, but I would disagree. In fact,
okay, but hold on. I want to talk about that in the next episode.
Well, let me say this. I mean, I want to just tell people I would disagree with their comments, because in the next episode I will share more in depth why their comments actually are erroneous, because they're still living the past. They're not aware of what's going on in the present time and what is the future of Saudi will be.
And see, this is what I want to get to. I think this guy has something. I think there's something happening here that we need to pay attention to. And we need to pay attention because I like to go in the next episode, I like to look at and unpack that, why we think that maybe MBS is onto something here. Maybe he is starting a new reformation in Islam, but there is another elephant in the room.
Right.
I'm not going to say what it is. It's yet to come. Stay with us.
Thank you as always, brother, and hope everyone is enjoying this really exceptionally special video series. And I want to emphasize the following. Me and Jay are not doing this for political reasons. So this is not a political show. We're actually excited because it's taken Islam now into a different direction that we've been praying for and hoping for the longest time. And that's pulling extremism out of Islam and beginning to reason with Islam in human fashion, face to face, logically speaking, talking about the issues and with an open mind, which is really the best way for us to interact with our Muslim friends, myself, Muslim family, my Muslim cousins, everyone that is in Saudi, for instance, my homeland. I love Saudi. I love my government over there. And I am even more excited about what MBS is doing, because I care for my people, and it seems to me that he is becoming a man of peace if he continues along these lines. With that in mind, let's wait until next episode to talk about yet another problem that might try to push back against this vision by MBS. Until next time, have a blessed day.